All right, here we go. Pixel Chatter 49B. This is like the reason I'm doing a 49B, for those of you that are new to the show, is I've had some technical issues. Let's just put it that way. And every week I'm trying to change one thing and then test it. And this week's been a very busy week, so I haven't been able to test my new setup. But what I went and did was I went and got myself a new monitor for my second monitor. I'll show you just over here. So I have a monitor. Let me see how easy this is. I have a monitor just there. So you see this monitor here? So over here is like the live streaming software that shows me all my upcoming shots. And then here I've got my chat box. So that's all the chat going on. And of course my main monitor has whatever I have on there. And I share, that's the screen I share right now. It's got a preview of the live stream on it, because that's where we always start when we start the live stream. But the monitor that I had was an old monitor, and it actually didn't like connecting up to the Mac. Something in my eye. It didn't like connecting up to the Mac as a second monitor. So when I think back about the very beginning, my computer didn't crash until I started using a second monitor. I used to use my iPad as a second monitor. Talking to the guys at Apple, they suggested I tried to get a newer monitor that would be more compatible. Now, the second monitor would not hook up with HDMI. This one does. So I'm thinking, well, maybe. Who knows? We've tried everything else. So it's got to be something. They're saying it's something hardware related, external third-party hardware. That's what they're saying. So we've tried disconnecting everything, and besides the monitor. So we'll see what happens. And if today goes well, then next week we'll have the big 5.0 show, and we'll talk about that shortly, because I want to get your ideas on what we should do, because it should be a fun show. Which means today's Pixel Chatter is going to be a little bit of a stripped back show, because we don't have VIPs to announce, we don't have a shot kit, there was nothing in my box. We'll talk about all of that shortly, but we will do a couple of image critiques, because to test the stream I need to use use Lightroom and simulate what we would normally do. So we're going to do a normal show to that extent, and you know, appreciate you guys tuning in. But yeah, it may be a little bit shorter than normal as well. That's okay. All right, let's have a look at the chat box. Who have we got with us? Let's have a look. When have we got? Charts from Arizona. G'day, Charts. G'day, Brian. Down in Victoria, 7 degrees, mate. Yeah, I was down in Melbourne yesterday. I went down Thursday and came back yesterday. Rick, g'day. 5:25, getting up nice and early. Dave from up in Townsville. Yeah, so Dave said there was a nice storm up there last time. I think it was Steve's Little Ray of Sunshine, I think is the photographer that I saw the amazing photos of the storm. Who else we got on? Gianni, g'day Gianni. Susan, g'day. Yep, fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything's crossed. Let's hope it works well. Greg, which is Photographia. I can never pronounce it properly. G'day, fingers crossed. Yes, Tim, g'day. Got sound and video. Is that what you're saying, Chance? Sound and video? Hopefully you have. iMac is a 27-inch, yes. David said strippers for the big 50. Don't think that's going to happen. G'day, Izzy. Good to see you too, buddy. All right, I'm back. So let's do something here. Thank you for your patience whilst we're testing things. So that didn't fix it, obviously, having a different monitor, as much as I would have liked that to have been the case. Tim, have I tried it without the second monitor? We're doing that right now. Mac went down like the Hindenburg. Yes, it did. Just reading the comments. The comments are now over here. So what's going to be tricky is when I do anything where I share my screen, it's going to be a bit messy because I don't have the second monitor to control everything. And unfortunately, the way Lightroom works, and this is where the trick is, right? Lightroom, let me just bring this camera up. Here we go. You can't see the camera. Sound. There we go. That was weird, wasn't it? Okay, let's save that. Make sure those settings are saved. Okay, we've got audio now. You should have audio. You should be able to hear me. Anyway, what I was saying was, so the reason I have the second monitor, because I'm running it without a second monitor now. I don't know if you heard that part. But the reason I'm using a second monitor is Lightroom, all the toolbars are separate windows. So with the software, I can choose a window to share. And if I share a one window, I can only share the main picture. I can't show you the toolbars that I'm using. So I have to show the whole screen to get all the toolbars in. So rather than sharing a window, I have to share the whole screen. Now that means that if I share my live streaming screen as well, so I can't separate the windows on my main monitor. But we'll try it with one monitor from now on for today, just knowing it's going to be a bit clunky because it should be able to run the second monitor. It shouldn't be a problem. I don't know why running the second monitor would affect it, but it does seem that the second monitor has been when the issue started. So I don't know why. Anyway, never had an issue on my PC. Yeah, look, I've spoken to lots of people with Macs that have never had an issue. So, if you think about it, I've got Apple on the case. They've been talking to me every couple of days. They've been logging into my computer. They've been downloading crash data. Even they're scratching their head. So, it's something very complex. It's not something simple. Otherwise, it would be fixed by now. I mean, we've been dealing with this since the beginning of the year. But slowly getting less hopeful about solving it, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see if it crashes without the second monitor in. So we'll carry on with the show and see what happens. All right. But I'm always very grateful that you're here. Is everything working now, by the way? Just let me know in the chat box. Can you see me and can you hear me? Just let me know. So I just would love to know. So I'm going to be I'm going to struggle a little bit more keeping up with everything because of the way everything is formatted. I got a thumbs up from Chance. All right, cool. Okay, so and the thing is, it wasn't even under load. Like nothing is under load, so it was interesting, very interesting to see that it crashed at that time. A little echo, but okay. You got echo. Yeah, I don't know why you would have echo. Congrats on my 50th. It's not my real 50th. Last week didn't really happen. Input road podcast. I see why. That's weird. Okay. Let me see. Hopefully that's better. Is that better now? You should get a better audio. Thanks for letting me know about the echo. You should have better audio, hopefully. Let me see. Wowee. All the audio is a bit... Let's try now. Is that better audio? Oh, hang on. Let's try again. How about that? That should be better. Hopefully the audio is fixed. Let me change it one more time. Let me just double check. It's a bit complex when you do this. Hang on, let me just get out of that screen. To make sure this one's got the right audio, and then I'm going to pop back into this one here. Now, this should make it should be from this microphone now. Should be from this microphone. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So what happens when it crashes, it resets all the settings. So yeah, check 1, 2. It resets all the settings. Thanks for your patience, by the way, and for helping me through this. Because, for me to get this right, so we can have good streaming in the future, I need to be testing it. And I've written down exactly what happened when it crashed. So you'll see down there, there's my notes. Frozen, crashed and restarted at 8:33 a.m. And I'm doing that so they then download the crash data and they try and work out what happened at that exact point in time in my computer. And hopefully they can solve it. So cheers to Apple. They've been very helpful, but we just haven't solved it yet. It should be good audio. This is a good microphone. This is the Rode Podcaster or whatever they call it, Procaster. Rode Podcaster it's called. And it should be better. Because the last microphone was doing funny things. I had the Audio Technica one. All right, let's... thank you, everybody, for your feedback. Let's jump into the show. I wanted to do a couple of things. Just a reminder, too, the show is brought to you by our amazing Patreon. So if you wonder who brings the On Three Legs whole gig is brought to you by our amazing Patreons. Now, if you want to become a Patreon, the way you do it is you head to patreon.com/on3legs. There is a link down below. And you join the VIP group. And the VIP group is very important photographers. And we have an online group where we... hang out, we share photos, we have competitions. Well, not competitions, we have a weekly VIP challenge. I don't like competitions, we're going to call it a challenge, where it challenges you, and we do normally select a winner and an honourable mention, or the boss does. The boss is my better half, by the way, if you want to hear who the boss is. And it's a lot of fun. So, if you want to support the channel, then that's the way to do it. Head to patreon.com/on3legs, become a VIP. You get access to that private group. I've noticed there's quite a few people requesting to join the group that haven't become patrons. That group is just for patrons. So if you want to be a part of the group, support the channel and you get in that group, you can, for as little as $2 a month. So it's not asking for much if you want to become part of that group. So I know I've seen people who view the show that are trying to join the group without becoming a patron. It's just the way it is. I just wanted to make sure I maintain the... I'm in a lot of other groups online, and when you have hundreds and hundreds of people in there, it just becomes difficult to weed out the people that aren't serious about being in the group. And so this is a way to have a group or a community, and it is a community that is a very good community. Anybody who's in there in the chat box now might just give you some heads up on how much they enjoy being in that online group compared to probably other groups. I mean, there are some good online groups that are free, don't get me wrong. But I was really, when I set that up, I thought I want a group that is just for people who want to be part of a good community. All right. The other thing is, just so you know, Tassie only has 4 spots left. So if you missed that announcement, I'm going to Tasmania in May next year, from May the 5th to May the 9th. It's 5 days in Cradle Mountain National Park. And 6 tickets have sold already. Deposits paid, places locked in. We have 4 places left. When I say we, that's me and Michael Sneddick, who is the owner of the Wild Nature Photography Expeditions or Tours. I can't remember the name of his company. It's a long one. Anyway, he's an amazing guy. He runs all these workshops and tours across the country, and I joined forces with him last time. We're doing it again. So we've got 4 spots left, and at this stage, 4 of the people that are booked in from you guys, so it's going to be a pretty good sort of on 3 legs gathering, and 2 are from Michael's database or followers, and so now we're looking for 4 more to join us to fill up the 10 spots, and then that'll be it. It's going to be an amazing 4 days. We're going to head to Cradle Mountain National Park. You'll see the turning of the Phagus, which is the Nathafagus funny, which is a deciduous beech tree. And you're probably wondering, why do you want to go and photograph that? Well, it's just amazing when you have the side of the mountain covered in it, and the colours are amazing. You might get some snow as well. Definitely see some fungi, and we'll do some mangrove. No, we're not going to do mangrove. We're going to do macro photography, and that's a lot of fun as well. If you've never done that, I'll share my tips and tricks with you, and hopefully you'll get addicted like Izzy did. I know Izzy loved it. I haven't seen any macros from you, Izzy, since you got back, but you should have some down there soon in Victoria. Go into what's down there, the Daintrees or something, somewhere. Anyway, so there's still 4 spots left, but the reason I tell you this today with importance is because the early bird deal finishes on Monday. And the early bird saves you around about 10%, or just a little over 10%. So if you want to jump on, now is the time to jump on and get the early bird special. Okay. So, as I said, there was no VIP challenge this week. Because of the challenges that I had with the computer, I didn't even know that there'll be a pixel chatter. The other thing was that we didn't have many photos uploaded from the VIP. So I know everyone was in different weather, etc. The theme this week is colourful. So VIPs, get onto that theme, get out there and take some photos. The other thing is, if you have a look behind me, I don't know if you can see there, that is the worldwide sticker board. And people have been sending in, viewers send in stickers or magnets or something from their region, and then I stick a little flag in the map. And right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people have done that. So we've got 9 flags. And we've got representation from the USA, New Zealand, Australia, and Tommy up there in Hong Kong. But that's why there's a Swedish flag up there, because he's actually a Swede living in Hong Kong. But otherwise, we don't have anything from anywhere else around the world at this stage. So, as I said, New Zealand, a stack in Australia, Hong Kong, and a couple up in the US. So go to your local tourist destination and grab a small magnet sticker or something that can be stuck up on the worldwide sticker board. Send it in. Send me your address as well, and I'll send you back some goodies as a thank you. Back to you that for you as a present. And we'll fill that worldwide sticker board, slowly filling up anyway. Alrighty. G'day, Dennis. And g'day, Si. Thanks for joining us. For those of you that have just joined us or joined since I sort of started the stream, we did have a crash 3 minutes in. I haven't had a chance to test everything properly since I put a new monitor on. They said maybe it was my monitor, and then the stream crashed anyway with the new monitor. So here we are now testing it with just one monitor. So it's going to be pretty clunky today as I try and work out how to best share my screen in a way. But you're going to see, for example, the live stream software as I change. So you're going to see things that you wouldn't normally see. And I'm not going to be able to see the chat box very easily unless I minimize it on the side of the screen, which I can do. Let's see. But then you'll see the chat box as well as I see it. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe we can. I don't know how this is going to work, but let's put that there. I'm just moving things around on my screen, by the way, if you're wondering what I'm doing. G'day, Bala. G'day, Anthony. You're saying it's slack, are you? All right. So now we have the chat box on the side of the screen at the same time, which is probably not going to be good. So we won't do that, actually. Let me just make that bigger again. Just thinking about that. I can actually put the chat on my phone. That's what I can do. Let me do that. All right. Yeah, that works. Okay, so I'm just trying something new here. Let me go back to my live stream software. Like I said, it's going to be clunky. Now, the reason it's a bit clunky is I've gone down to one monitor, and I sort of explained before. I have a second monitor. Let me show you over here. That is now disconnected. And I use this monitor to have all the live streaming screen on, have all the chat box on there, all the extra stuff goes on there so you don't see it. And that's because I have to share my screen. And when I share my screen, you're going to see everything that's on my live screen. It's just the way the software works. So I'll do that now, and you're going to see what I mean. Because what you're going to see is you're actually going to see this window, which is the live streaming window. And so what I have to do now is get rid of that. Now I can't see if anything is working or not. I won't even be able to tell if something has crashed. So as I critique these photos, except for that, I guess everything will freeze up. So we'll see what happens. But hopefully everything is working well for you. And I can check the chat box. So for example, I can bring the chat box in like that, but now you can see it as well. So hopefully everything is working okay. And you can see these two photos. So today, we've got two photos sent in for image critiquing. We've got one on the left there from Rob Roy. Let me show you. We'll zoom in and have a look. There we go. From Rob Roy. And then we've got one on the next one was Dennis Stool. Stool? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but Dennis is in the chat box. So there we go, Dennis. And I don't think Rob is. And this is a photo. So we'll start with Rob's. Rob sent quite a few in over the years. Now, by the way, if you want to send your photos in for the show, let me just quickly go back here. This is so you can see exactly how things happen now. So you're going to see the behind the scenes working of the software. If you want to shoot your images in for the show, you can email them into the email address down below the video, ben@on3legs.com, and make sure they're 3000 pixels on the widest edge, and that you include all of the EXIF data. So if I have the EXIF data, it's nice and easy for me to be able to help by being able to know exactly how it is you took the photo, what settings you use, etc., because then we can look at it from a technical aspect. So here we're going to do another switcheroony. Let's do this over to this screen again, and hopefully that's working. Let me see. Definitely got the... You've got this live screen, so I should be getting that preview. It's very tricky to do because I can't see the preview of the screen, so you can tell me in the chat box if it's all looking okay. Earl had a very bad stutter last week, didn't he? Yes. Oh, dear. So just let me know in the chat box if everything's working okay. And you should see the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen right now. You should see what I'm seeing. You'll see there's a bit of a delay. Not getting anything through from you guys there. Okay, I'm going to go back to closing that chat box. I'm going to use the one on the phone, I think. Let me do that. Earl had a very bad study, yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Okay. All good? Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to try and monitor the chat box on my phone, but it's a bit difficult because the phone keeps going black on me. So I can't just leave it there. It keeps buzzing out, and I think that's because I haven't got it playing. So maybe if I play it, we turn the sound off. There we go. And that way. Okay, I can also set the screen there. Okay, that works well. All right, fantastic. That works pretty good. Okay, so yeah, we've got this picture here from Rob Roy, and there's a few things that we'll talk about. Let's start with the technical stuff, and then we'll get stuck into the composition. And yeah, great photo, by the way. Now, these were the same images I was going to critique last week, but we had so much crashing going on that I decided just to abort the show. So, you know, if they look familiar, that's why. We didn't get to critique them. We just had a quick look at them. So thanks again, Rob, for sending this in. Like I said, Rob has sent in many photos for the Pixel Channel show, and he's a very active participant. So let's look at the technical data. I've got ISO 64, f6.3, 0.8 of a second, and he's at 66 mil. He's using his 24 to 85 mil 3.5 to 4.5 lens on his D850. And from a technical aspect, I would suggest that aperture is a little bit wide because you're going to have challenges. But, you know, once again, I wasn't there, so I don't know why he's done it. But you just got to be careful because you'll see down here that, for example, these rocks aren't in focus. Okay, so your foreground is out of focus. Now, that is a result of a shallow depth of field. So up here, for example, is nice and sharp. You can see the water's nice and sharp, but down here is out of focus. And so by having that shallow depth of field, you're losing parts of your image that are going to be blurry. And so I think it's important when you're thinking about taking your shots, you've got to think about, okay, is there any foreground? If this rock wasn't here, these two rocks, you'd probably get away with it. But with those two rocks there, you didn't get away with it. The other thing is you'll see that these palm fronds are all out of focus. Now, that could be for one or two reasons. One of the challenges with waterfalls is they create a breeze, and as the water comes down, it creates wind. The wind blows the fronds around, and that means they go out of focus. So you can see that they're all out of focus. They're all blurry. Now, that could be the shallow depth of field, because I don't know exactly where in the picture they are, because they're out of focus. It's hard to tell. Or it could be because they're moving. But we'll talk about a solution for that. Actually, I'll do it now. One of the solutions to fix that, so definitely depth of field. If you want to keep that aperture because you want that shutter speed, then you're going to need to focus stack. Now, the D850 has a focus stacking setting, which I've now worked out how to use, and it's really good and allows you to set the focus to however many points you want, and it takes the photos for you throughout. But most cameras don't have that. So all you need to do is focus on the foreground. So you could focus on this rock here or this rock here, make sure they're in focus, and make sure that's in focus, and then focus up here. And then just blend the two photos together. And you'll get everything in focus. It'll work really well. That still doesn't fix if you have stuff over here that's moving around. So what you have to do here is you have to change the shutter speed, okay, to a faster shutter speed. Now, this is where you've got to be really quite careful, because if you open up the aperture, for example, to change the shutter speed to let more light in, then you're going to have a shallower depth of field. So typically what I do is I just increase the ISO. His shutter speed was 0.8 of a second. It's not going to take much to get it fast enough to be able to freeze this off. So he was at ISO 64. I might have to go to ISO 400 or maybe even 800 to make these so they're sharp. And then I would blend just those in later. Okay, and I typically do it as a precaution anyway, because that way you can just, if you need to use those parts of the photo, you can, but if not, no harm done. You haven't wasted any film because it's all digital, right? So just when you do a photo like this, just think about that and go, okay, I need to take one where I up my ISO. Now, you're still in aperture priority, exactly the same aperture, so your depth of field will be the same. And all you do is you just wind up the ISO a little bit until you get a fast enough shutter speed that you freeze all the foliage, and you'll be able to use that to blend it in later to make your photo so it's all sharp. Because to me, this can really have a detrimental effect on your image. Now, the other thing I'm noticing, which we talk about a lot on this show because we get a lot of waterfall shots coming in, is just these highlights. Looks like a little bit of detail has been blown on these highlights up here, and it's really tricky with water. You can't trust your view on the back of your camera because it's not great at telling you whether or not these things are out of whack. I don't know if they're completely blown. It's hard to tell. We'll have a look, but I think we've lost a bit of detail there. So you just got to be careful. I wonder if that's icicles or water. Not sure. That looks like icicles, doesn't it? But it could just be water. The other thing that you could have done here, technically, is you see these reflections, how bright they are off the rocks, all these reflections. A CPL filter, like a circular polarizing filter, would get rid of those. Okay, so this is a classic example when using a CPL filter is really important and would give you a good result. So make sure you've got one in your kit bag. Unfortunately, they are pricey filters, but they're a good filter to have in your kit bag because all of these reflections would be gone. So we'll read his notes here. He says the waterfall is usually 10 times this strength, but because we haven't had any measurable rainfall, many of the streams and falls have somewhat dried up. Shot late afternoon, overcast. Yeah, okay. Nissi CP. Okay, so it looks like he did use a circular polarizing filter, which is interesting. So I'm surprised there's that much reflections. Maybe it was worse than that before he put the filter on. Be interesting if he jumps into the chat box to tell us. But yeah. But I would say if you've got a CPL, just make sure you rotate it to get rid of all those reflections. And if it doesn't remove all the reflections, then take several shots. Just keep rotating it until you can, and then once you can blend them together, because it is quite, they're quite bright. I mean, so I was surprised. All right. Yeah, you're increasing the shutter speed and blending. Yeah. It still looked like a poo. Thanks, Anthony. All right. Well, the chat box on my phone's working well, so that's good. Okay. Let's jump into the develop module and just have a look at this a little bit closer. Oh, it thinks I've got it brand new because I had to reinstall everything. Look at that. It thinks I'm brand new to Lightroom. Better teach you how to use the develop module. Okay. Let's just check these highlights out for a second. I'm going to just bring this exposure up a tad. You'll see straight away where they clip. Yeah. And I like showing this because you can see straight away the spots where they clip. If you have a look up here, now I'm up in the exposure by 3.6 there, so it's likely they weren't blown out. So, but they're just fairly light. I can see. Remember, I was mentioning before that I think these reflections are distracting. They're so bright. If I zoom in, you'll see that with the, I've got the clip on the histogram visible, which is this button up here. So if you can see where I am up on the right hand side here, I don't know where you can see that. On the top right hand corner of the histogram, you click on the little up arrow and it turns this red stuff on and off and helps you see where the highlights are, the blown highlights. And we've lost all the detail in those there. So that's very blown out for if you had a CPL on. So just be careful how you use it. Same over this side. These are all blown out as well. And you can fix it later by reducing highlights, but you're actually not going to you're not going to save the detail in this photo by doing that. Once the detail's gone, the detail's gone. So you just need to keep that in mind. So I'm going to do that. Let's just do a bit of editing on this shot. He's obviously cropped this because it's like it looks almost square. But let's reduce the highlights. Let's increase the shadows. And then I'm going to do the whites and the blacks. And you're just going to see the difference just straight away. If I do the before and after, let's do that. That's interesting. Okay. So that was his shot that he sent in. This is the after. Now, all I've done is reduce the highlights and increase the shadows. And you can see the amount of vibrance that's popping up out of that shot. Let's go back and just see what that is. There we go. Let's just reduce those shadows a bit. This is a bit overdone. It's looking a bit HDR. There we go. So by reducing the highlights and increasing the shadows, I've really brought it to life. I'm just going to reduce the saturation a tad, because not too much, just -2 or something like that. I think it was a bit too saturated. A little bit of vibrance there and clarity. Let's get clarity up. Now in this, I don't know if you use dehaze much, but watch what dehaze does to our water. I love what dehaze does to some areas. So if I go the other way, you'll see that it's seeing a whole bunch of haze in the middle here, but by dehazing it, it sort of just brings a bit of depth. So just a little bit of that can work really well. And it's sort of similar to grabbing this brush and doing the clarity thing that I do, which I know you're all getting used to by now. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to just grab my... Come on, mouse. Wow, even this... my Wacom's not set up. I forgot that. Okay. I'm just going to unplug the Wacom because it's actually not set up. I forgot. We're trying to test this without using that. So here we go. I'm using my mouse to do clarity. And you can see I'm overdoing. He's already done some, I think, or some sharpening. So I'll have to reduce that back down because that'll just be too overdone. I'm going to increase the contrast a bit overall. So I think it needs a bit more depth. And yeah, I like that. Okay, now I've done very little to it. And it's taken me just a few motions on the Lightroom. So this was before and this was after. From a composition point of view, I like the composition. The only thing let's try cropping in just a bit more from the left, because those palm fronds aren't adding anything because they are out of focus. And I'm going to bring this in a bit from the right as well and just see if we can make this work a bit better. Maybe bring it in a little bit more. Just bring it in a little bit more. Something like that. And then I feel like it needs a bit of a straighten or something. Gotta make sure those. The way you straighten a waterfall is you've got to see all of these that are going straight down. Typically water, goes straight down. So that's a good indication if something is straight or not. It's hard with something like this, but I feel like it's not 100% straight, so still doesn't feel right to me. You can always press the auto button and see what Lightroom thinks. Let's have a look, see what that did. Something doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I would say he had it relatively straight, so we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it there. Yeah, so maybe something like that. I've probably cropped in a bit tight on the right. Let's bring that back out just a bit. Something like that. I like this little thing down the front here. Now that just also helps me with my editing, because I can say, okay, well, if I want to make, I mean, these rocks are out of focus. That makes it hard to go in and do much with those. But I can start to choose things, and you can still see we've got blown highlights, unfortunately. So maybe if we just... So it takes me a long time to get rid of those blown highlights and those reflections. So you're not going to be able to do much with that, unfortunately. All right. But overall, look, it's a good shot. I like the original composition, but I just feel that some of the stuff that was on the left and the right wasn't adding to the image. I wouldn't be 100% happy with this as yet. Something not quite right still. I don't know what it is. Maybe I need to go more. Maybe we need to stick with square. Let's do square. And let's see what happens. There we go. That's quite nice. Or the other one that's good, and this is what they used to use, the big 8x10, the big 8x10 film. You know, the 4x5 8x10, which is that medium format. And then, you know, that's not what I wanted to do. So you could do this 8x10 format, which will probably work with this. Let's have a look, which maybe is what he's done. Because I think that's what he's done, yeah. He's gone for the 8x10. Yep. So you could do something like that, 8x10 format. Yeah, so that's what it is. So it wasn't square, he's done the 8x10, which I think is a nice format of medium format, or sorry, large format rather, film camera. Some my coffee before it goes cold. Too late, it's already cold. So yeah, there's lots of options there, but hopefully that gives you some ideas from a perspective of editing, but also taking the shot, because there's some things, if you don't get the shot right in camera, then you're not going to be able to fix it later. And I think that's, you know, that's always something you've got to consider when you're out in the field taking those photos. So there we go. So thanks for that, Rob. Good shot. Alrighty. What does everybody think? See, the chat box was going off before, and everything's going well without the second monitor. So I have a feeling that's going to be my issue, and I'm going to have to work out a way around that, aren't I? I'm going to have to work out a way around that. But it should be able to run a second monitor. That's insane. If I can't run a second monitor, that would be insane. You miss your 4x5? Yeah. Vertical pano. Stop it, Brian. Yeah, I love my panos. I love my panos. We could try that, but I won't do that. Yeah, all right, good stuff. You still have a 4x5? You know what? I bought I think you all know this story. I bought a Hasselblad X-Pan because I wanted to go back to using film, and then worked out that I just didn't like it anymore because you don't have the same flexibility in post-processing that you do with digital. So as much as I love it, I love watching Ben Horn. Ben Horn goes out into the wilderness with he's another vlogger or YouTuber. If you haven't seen him, go and find him. But he shoots with an 8x10, and yeah, it's just good to see. It's good to see, but I think it's very challenging. Very challenging. Alrighty, but thanks for sending that in, Rob. Awesome, lovely shot. Just a few things there for you to think about as you're out there shooting. And like I said, there's no right or wrong, so I really appreciate people sending these in. I'm not here to judge anybody. I always say this. It's not about that. It's about maybe giving you some tips as to what I might have changed or how I would have captured the image, because that can help you, you know. And sometimes you get out there and you get in that moment and you're shooting and you just take shots and you get home and you go, oh, I wish I had done something different. To me, a good idea is when you get out onto when you get to somewhere where you're going to shoot, arrive a little bit early, and somewhere like there where it was an overcast day and you've got time, just think through things and go, okay, what's going to be blown out, what's going to be moving, what's my depth of field issues going to be, all of those things. Start thinking about, okay, what are the things, what's the hero of my shot, what can I, and if you start thinking about what you can do once you get it back in Lightroom, you can start thinking about things like, well, what can I create from this image? How can I enhance this once I get it back? And geez, that rock will look good or it won't look good, or that bit of rubbish I'm not going to be able to remove, so I'll get that out of the way now if I can, or isolate it from a shot somehow. So you can start to think about what to do. Alrighty. Lots of people talking about 4x5. 40 years ago for chance, yep. Tim says very true. Ben Horn is awesome. Yeah, Ben Horn is great. Super sharp chance. Super sharp. Super sharp. Oh, the 4x5. Ah, okay. Loved it, yeah. Freezer of film still. Oh, well, get out and use it, Tim. Get out and use it. You never know. I have looked at some of them. There's some really good, affordable 4x5s out there, and there's a whole enthusiast group out there that shoot with them. Those and 8x10. So I have thought about it, but I have enough challenges finding time to shoot with my DSLR. So I'm just sticking to that for now. This week has been a really busy week. I just every night we had something on, and that's incredibly unusual. Well, there you go. All right, let's jump into the next image. Let's do that. So this one was by Dennis Stool. Let me make sure I've changed the screen over, because it doesn't help you if you don't see it. Okay, let's try again. Here we go. Now, hopefully you're seeing this. The live stream actually has a delay, so what's on my phone is slightly delayed. And then, so, even though the audio you're hearing is linked up, what I'm seeing in my playback is delayed. All right. So we've got the this building here by Dennis, who I think is in the chat box. So he said this is the Grist Mill Country Store, built in 1864. They're making that fairly well known by this sign up here, aren't they? 1864. And it's in a place called Childersburg, Alabama, USA. And this is a HDR shot taken from 3 images and then processed in Photoshop and then Lightroom. So good to see you trying some HDR. Not sure why you shot with HDR. I'd be interested to know that, if you felt you needed to. But there are reasons why you would, and but I'll give you my 2 bobs worth if you want them, but let's hear from you. So Nikon 7200, 18 to 140mm lens, 3.5 to 5.6, shot at 22mm or the 33mm equivalent full frame. Cropped ISO 100, so it's been cropped 160 of a second f9. Well, that's a little bit mute because there would have been 3 exposures and probably a couple of exposures apart, I'd say, to do your HDR. But yeah, good stuff. Interesting building, that's for sure. So from a technical detail, I've shot a lot of HDR. In fact, that's sort of, I still carry that badge on my chest when I go out and do camera club presentations. In particular, they always seem to tout me as the HDR photographer. Funnily enough, I hardly ever do HDR now, and the reason for that is because of the dynamic range of these full frame sensors that Nikon and Canon, whoever Sony, they're all coming out with these cameras that have amazing dynamic range, and so no need really to do the HDR anymore in a lot of cases. There's still times when it's valid, but yeah. Now something like a 7200 or one of the older cameras is still a valid reason if the dynamic range is really high. So for example, up here you've got this sky. Oh, what happened there? That's not what I wanted to happen. Up here you have this sky. It's quite bright and you can see it doesn't have a lot of detail. Down here it's quite dark, and there's some cool things down here that you want to make sure that in your shot you have nice and sharp and clear. So you want it light enough. So there would be definitely a valid argument for doing HDR here. There's no doubt about that. Things like the detail and all this old wood, you wouldn't be able to capture unless you did HDR, because to expose for this top half of the image, this bottom half would be quite dark. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to shots like this. So when you do HDR, it's good. So Dennis is saying your first time to trying HDR, excellent effort then, because it's not easy to tell that this is a HDR shot, and that's a good way to have your HDR. You don't want to be able to tell 100%. One of the things with HDR is haloing, so you just got to watch. There's a little bit of haloing around the top of the roof there, I can see. Very hard to tell unless you know what you're looking for. But otherwise, it's pretty good. So you just got to be careful when you use HDR software in particular. There's a few on the market doing different things. But for me, that would be the thing to watch out for, is that haloing, because it can create a lot of issues. The other thing being HDR, you could probably have increased the exposure inside these doors. Now, I'm not sure if there's anything in there. This one's got some timber. There's probably nothing in there, so there's probably no point. But otherwise, I think the light is pretty well balanced across the image, which is good. The image itself, the composition, I find the crop too tight. You can see over here to the left, the roof is right up here against the edge of the frame. So I think we've got to be careful when you're cropping your images that you leave a little bit of space. This building is just consuming the entire frame. So let's just jump into the develop module for a tick. And let's put the rule of thirds over. These are your intersections you sort of want to have something of interest on. So for me, I would have zoomed out more and had this filling less of the frame. It's just filling too much of the frame. Now, having said that, I wasn't there. So there may have been something directly to the left of the frame that was distracting, ugly. Who knows? There may have been something to the right of the frame that was the same, distracting or ugly. So sometimes you've got no choice. But I just find the crop too tight. So just be careful when you're cropping your images to make sure you think about leaving some space around your subject, because otherwise it's going to detract from it. The way that you frame the road through here is a nice leading line, so that's good. I always like to do that myself, is have them coming out of the corner of the image. Always looks good. But it has got a bit of flatness about this image as well, and you've got to watch that. And if you zoom in, it's hard to tell. That's at 3:1, but there is a bit of noise. I'm not entirely sure how sharp it is. A bit hard for me to tell. It looks pretty sharp. Yeah, I can read that. Thank you. I can read the emission and information sign. Yeah, so it's all good sharp. Nice and sharp. So you've got it nice and sharp, but there is a bit of noise. So noise is a byproduct of HDR as well, for some reason. Creates a bit of noise. I would say it's lacking a little bit of depth, and it's quite an easy thing to do. The first thing to do is just adjust your whites and your blacks. And that should give you a bit of depth. So let's just do that. Now it's trying to, if I click on that, you'll see that we're losing detail in the black. So I'm just going to be really careful. So it wants me to have the blacks up quite high. I'm going to bring them down to about there. So we're going to lose a bit of detail. See where the blue is on the sides of this image, all the blue there, blue in the doors. We don't need that detail. So I'm going to just say, let's accept that we're going to lose that detail. And then let's just bring the contrast up a bit. And I'm going to just bring the highlights down a tad. Shadows up just a touch, just to compensate for that. A little bit of clarity. Once again, dehaze in this circumstance is going to bring a bit of depth. It's also going to bring a bit of detail back to the sky. You don't want to go overboard with it, but you'll see it'll just, it just gives the image some, I don't know, some oomph. I like what it does. White balance wise, let's just adjust that white balance. I'm not 100% that I'm happy with it. Let's find a good neutral grey. Yeah, that's a good one. There we go. It's a bit better. All right, so let's have a look at it before and after just with a few simple changes. Once again, that was before and this is after. So if you can just note the difference in the depth or the clarity, I don't know what the right word is, but to me, if you look, let's look at it, break it down into parts of the image. Look at the top, number one. So look at the sky. So that's before and that's after. So you can see a big difference in the detail of the sky by what I've done. And if you look at the building, you'll see, even by doing what I've done, the detail in the building and the road, everything seems to be better. There's more definition through each part of the image too. So for example, the separation, even things, and this is when I talk about an image being a bit flat, have a look at this hedge along the front of the building. In fact, I'll zoom in a bit more. Have a look at the hedge here along the front of the building. So that was before, and this is after. And you can see just by adding that, you know, the dehaze and a bit of depth, how it makes it more three-dimensional. And it's a weird sensation. I don't know what it is, but to me, when I look at an image, I'm going, well, how do I get that depth? How do I make it feel like I'm there in the image? And you know, there's a lot of things you can do to make that happen. It could probably do with a little bit more. Let's just jump back in here. A little bit more contrast even, but I want to just make sure I'm going to back the vibrance off just a tad because I'm getting a bit too much color popping from everything. So I'm just going to bring it back just a tad. There we go. I'm just going to drop the shadows back down because I feel like it's too HDR-y. Just about there. Let's have a look. All right, let's go back into this view here. Yeah, that's looking better. So once again, here's the before and the after. So it sort of gives you a real feel for, you know, how to get that detail to pop. Another thing that you could do, let's look at this, is grab a brush and the clarity brush and really just to bring in a focus on the front of the building. You know, let's do the veranda there and let's do the front of this building with clarity. And I'll have to back it off a bit in a second because I'm just overdoing it, so that I can adjust it to my liking then. Okay, and I think that's actually a good look as well. So if we look at before and after, so there's just the difference in the depth that creates. So to me, it's always just looking for ways to really enhance the image, and I think that works nicely. I like that actually. Yeah, I like that. Another thing you could use instead of that clarity brush is you could sharpen the image. And I think I've shown you this before. If we go down to detail, let me close this top box off. Let's get rid of that. Brush, close the top box off. So if you go down here to detail, you can do sharpening as well. But you've got to be careful with sharpening, especially with HDR. If you hold down your Alt key, it gives you this screen where you can drag it along and you can actually mask off what you want to sharpen. So in this image, I would just want to sharpen up some of the edges. So I'm going to be quite aggressive in my masking. And you'll see that way that I can be quite full on with my sharpening and I'm not going to go too crazy. And then if you change the radius, you can sort of see how it, you know, just do it a low number. Maintain how much detail you want, just low. So it's just very subtle sharpening, but it's another thing that you can do to really get the image to pop in the way that you want. So let's just have a look here, before and after. Okay, before and after. I mean, if you have a look, especially the detail down here, let me zoom in down here just so you can see. Don't do this to me Lightroom. There we go. See down here on the balcony how it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit washed out after. Okay, a lot more detail down there. Probably too much now. Probably overdone the sharpening, but it's good to give you that indication. But even things like the wood grain on these poles is beautiful. You know, you can see all the knots and stuff in these posts. They're popping out, you know, rather than before they were sort of hidden. things like, this whole bit of equipment, everything's popping out now. Even the leaves on the roof, everything's popping out. And I think to me, that's the key, is to get that three-dimensional thing going on. And yeah, don't be afraid to really get in there and muck around. But good shot, interesting shot, and good on you, mate, for having a go at HDR. If that was your first one, well done. Because usually people's first HDR is terrible. So you've done excellent. You've done a great job. All right, let's jump out of the screen. Okay, so there we go. Awesome stuff. All right. So that's pretty good. And it looks like the without the second monitor, we didn't have a crash. So I'm really starting to think that that's the issue, isn't it? Is the second monitor. So that leads me then to wonder how I go about operating the show without a second monitor, which will be interesting. So I want to say thanks to Rob, Roy and Dennis for sending in those photos, and we can all give them a big thanks in the chat box, because I know Dennis is definitely there. Rob, I don't think has popped in, but it takes a brave person to send their photo in to be publicly critiqued on the show, and I always appreciate that. But I always, with that caveat, say that what I do to them or what I suggest just ideas. If you love what you've taken, then that's great. It's your art. And I'm a great believer that if you love it, then it's fine. A reminder that next week will be the 50th show. So here's what I'm going to do for next week. I'm going to run the 50th show. I'm going to do it on one monitor. I am going to work out how to use my iPad again as my second monitor, because when I was doing that, I didn't have any crashing. Because I think that'll work better, and it'll be a little bit clunky, but I reckon we'll make it happen. For the 50th show, let's have a big party. It's the big 50. I think we need to have party hats. So send me in your picture of yourself with a party hat or something party-ish, and photos of a party, whatever you like. I don't care what you do. Be creative, and we'll put it on the show. And what will I do for the winner? We'll have to find somebody that has the best party outfit. We'll send them something. Let me decide. Let me think. What could we do? I'll have to think about it. I'll announce it before next Saturday. But yeah, we'll do the 50th show. Let's have a look at what's going on in the chat box. So I've got the chat box on my trusty phone now. See? So I'm watching the chat live in here, along with the show going on the top of it. But that has worked for this show, hasn't it? It has worked, but I can probably put the chat box up on the screen now because you're not seeing my screen. I can definitely do that. There we go. Makes it easy. All right. So let's have a look at the chat box here. Wow, it's been going off. Lots of people talking about 4x5s. Get great camera as long as you have a tripod. Oh, great camera as long as you have a good tripod. Strong tripod is good. Yes, it is. Have trouble with exposure. Yeah, the film's tricky. Yeah, really have to use use a lot of your brain power when you're exposing on film. Yes, it's heavy. There we go. What HDR software was used? Dennis said he used Photoshop, and then edited in Lightroom. Let's see what else we got here. A lot of trash to the left, was there? Yeah, okay. Thanks for that, Dennis. Sky seems washed out a bit. Yep, we did our best to fix that. High contrast. Yes, we did some of that. Contrast adds dimension. It does. No, that's what I think. It adds a bit of depth to things, and that's really, for me, that's what makes an image. I want you to feel like you're there. So the depth is what makes that happen. Another one, which software did you use? Good adjustments and suggestions, thank you. Aurora is pretty amazing software for HDR. Yes, it is. That's the one that's been developed by Trey Ratcliffe, and I think I've got a discount code somewhere. If you do want it, let me know, and I'll see if I can find that code. Aussie Paul just got lazy butt out of bed. Still on holidays. That's all right. Has everything been going okay? Yes, since after I disconnected the second monitor. So we had a crash at 8:33 a.m. That froze and restarted the computer. And that was after using a brand new second monitor that I bought. And because they suggested maybe it was that. But obviously it wasn't the monitor that I was using because it crashed with the new monitor. But having disconnected the monitor for the rest of the show, it's worked faultlessly. So I'm thinking maybe having a second monitor is not a good idea. So I have to rework or rethink my way of running the show without the second monitor. But otherwise, it's been going smoothly, which is good. Rick says, might miss Pixel Chat 50 will be in Bustleton, even at the jetty. Excellent. Well, enjoy that. I don't know, did anybody see the photo that was taken by Ren on the week from down there? He got the most amazing colour over the top of Bustleton Jetty, Ren Thielen. And Ren's not in the chat. He's probably down there somewhere enjoying the shooting. But let me see if I can quickly show you. As complex as it is today. Let me see if I can show you. He shared it in that group from memory. Let me have a look. Did he share it? Oh, maybe not. But Ren's one of the VIPs. And for those of you who know, I love jetties. Yeah, here we go. I'll show you this in a second. Here we go. What's the best way for me to do this? Let's go this way, this way, this way. Share screen this way. Share screen. There we go. So if you're not following Ren is at Ren Thielen Landscape Photography. Started his own Facebook page. Go and follow him. But look at the colour that he got. Isn't that amazing? How good's that? I love how you can enter full screen and it does nothing but make the picture, it doesn't do much at all, same size picture. But yeah, isn't that a great shot? So just look at that colour. Just love that colour. And of course, love a pano. You have to do a pano of that jetty. There's no other way around it, unfortunately. But yeah, there you go. Good shot, Ren. There we go. Back to that screen. There we go. Yeah, so, and Ren's based over in WA, so he's obviously down there enjoying the colours of the sky down at Bustleton. All right. Well, thanks for joining me for today. Thanks for 49B. Which was the only way I could get out of calling it episode 50 because I hadn't had time to test or prepare anything. So thanks for joining me. Looks like everything went pretty well, which is good, isn't it? I was pretty happy with how things went after we disconnected that other monitor. And I think, I really think that's the challenge, something to do with the second monitor. So we'll just go without for next week. And I'll have to come up with another solution to running the show without the monitor. It's going to be awkward. But I'll work it out. I will work it out. I just have to work out what to do with the iPad to make it work better. A couple of reminders. The worldwide sticker board behind me. You see the description for the P.o.Box under the video, downstairs I was going to say. Could say that. P.o.Box down there. Send in your sticker, badge, something, whatever you like, souvenir from your region of the world. And we will put a flag in the worldwide sticker board. And that way we get you onto the map of amazing people that support the show. And just send me your address inside. Make sure you include your address so I can send you back a thank you gift as well. Some goodies back to you in rewards for sending me in your worldwide sticker. And we'll get that up on the board. The other thing that I'll remind you as well is the show is brought to you. The whole On Three Legs community is supported by amazing people that become patrons of the show. And you can do that by going to patreon.com/on3legs. Once again, down below in the description. And the Tassie tour coming up. I think I've still got that in the description down below, where you can join me in Tasmania in May next year. We've got 4 spots left. And unlike last year, what we did last year when the first one booked out, we opened up a second one. And we ended up taking 2 groups of 9, I think it was from memory. So we had 18 people in total. But neither myself or Michael have the time to do a second one in May next year. So we will only be doing a one. And that'll be a bit of fun. I will probably be sticking around. I'll probably be there a few days before, a few days after, and hiring a camper van and doing a few other things as well, which will be a bit of fun. But I won't have the time to run a second workshop at all. So there you go. The other thing I did want to mention too, if you're in Sydney, I've had a few people requesting me to do workshops locally, and it's not something that I have done a lot of, but I have thought about doing some more because people want to get out and learn in the field, and I understand that. So if you are thinking that you'd like to do that, I was thinking about doing like a Sydney sunset and lights sort of workshop where we start with a sunset shoot and then we end the night with shooting some, Sydney by light, like the lights of Sydney. If that's something you're interested in, maybe shoot me a message through my Facebook page or even just replying to this, down in the chat box, because I'm happy to do it, but it's one of those things where I just need to have the numbers to make it all work. As long as I have a few of you that are keen, then I'm happy to do it. So I think that could be a good thing. And if you're a VIP and you want to do it, I'll probably, you guys will get special privileges or something. So anyway, that's something to work on. The other thing too was, you may have noticed that I was proofing some images for my calendar, my 2019 calendar. And if you're a VIP, I'm going to get you to start helping me pick out some images shortly. So we're going to pick some images to shortlist, and you guys are going to help me pick out the 12 images that are going in my very first ever calendar. Never made a calendar before, but that will be on sale very soon. I'll be taking pre-orders hopefully by the end of this month, and I think it'll be about $30 Aussie plus postage. So if you want to get one of those calendars with 12 of my images in there, including how they were shot and the information, EXIF information, then yeah, just keep an eye out for that as well. All right, well, have a fantastic week. Thanks again for joining me for the 49B Pixel Chatter, and thanks to those guys that sent their photos in. Until next time, get out there and take some photos. Cheerio.